everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Where in the CPC is Rev Z. And today I'm with Reverend Bobby Spurling. And Bobby, where am I today?
You're at the Hopkinsville Cumberland Presbyterian Church. We're located in western Kentucky, near the border of Tennessee, close to Clarksville.
Okay, so we're not that far from Clarksville. What, maybe about half hour-ish?
Yeah,
right around there?
Maybe even 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's true, from the outskirts of the town.
Yeah.
Clarksville seems to just keep growing and growing and growing. It's quite expansive.
It's huge, so yeah, just to get into Tennessee, it's about 15 minutes away.
Okay, so not very far from Tennessee.
Not very far.
And actually, you're not terribly far from me. It was only like a half hour, 45-minute drive to get here, so that was kind of nice this morning. I didn't have to drive too terribly far to get here.
We're practically neighbors in the Cumberland Presbyterian Church.
This is true. We really are. This is very true. This is very true. This is a beautiful church, and the people that are watching this interview now, they've already got to see, you've all got to see some of the video of the church and the grounds, and it's a huge complex. I mean, every time I visit here, it's just like, oh my goodness, this building just keeps going and going and going and going. So when was this congregation here in Hopkinsville? When was it formed?
Well, it was officially formed between the years of 1825 to 1826.
Okay.
It started out kind of as a home church. Then they actually helped the Unitarian Church finish building their church, and they alternated weekends with them until they could buy their own church, which was on 7th Street. This is not the original church.
Okay.
The original church was located on 7th Street, and we actually have part of the stained glass, which should be in the video, is this circle round this stained glass that we have originally from that building is in our narthex with this beautiful cast iron that one of our members had made for us.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of history here, and they practically moved from that place because there was no parking. They had only on-street parking.
Oh, wow.
And so having only on-street parking in a city was kind of difficult.
Yes.
And so they decided to go and move to a residential area.
Okay. And it's definitely residential. I think every time I've come here, my GPS has taken me another direction through another neighborhood to get here. So you're definitely right in the middle of a residential section. So you said this is not the original building. When was this building established?
1962, I believe, is when it was completed.
Okay.
And I believe his name is John F. Brown. Everybody knows John F. Brown. I mean, he is kind of a legend in our area. Or Paul F. Brown. I apologize. Paul F. Brown. Paul F. Brown is the one who started this building project, and Paul Brown has, a lot of ties to this area. I believe even the president of the seminary comes from that line. I may be wrong on that. I don't know. It's maybe something I have to edit out. But anyways, Paul Brown is the one who started the building project here, and he did this wonderful job, and then he handed it over to Reverend Talley, who was a minister here for 35 years.
Oh, wow. So he was here a
very long time.
Yeah. Considering, when I talk to most CP pastors today, 35 years is a very, very long tenure in one location. Not many CP pastors. Well, and honestly, not many pastors in general, doesn't matter the denomination, do not tend to stay in one location that span of time. So that's really awesome that he did.
Yes.
So with the original, you said 1825 is when it was established. So who are some of your founding members?
Okay, well, we don't have who was the founding members, but we do have a list of the first elders.
Oh,
and so the first elected elders were David Usher, John Finley, and Rezin Elliott.
Okay, so we had 3 original elders to the congregation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. And you said that was located up on 7th Street, which I'm not sure how far, because I don't know Hopkinsville very well.
Right.
How far from that?
I would say we're less than a mile.
Okay, so you didn't move real far.
Right, but they had just decided that they wanted to move away from the city into a residential area. And when they moved here, there were new housing developments, which was a good idea at the time.
Right.
But it's come back. It becomes difficult because differing people, and at that time, people would often travel to the church that was nearest to them.
Right.
And now in the postmodern age, or whatever you want to, the new millennium, most people travel quite a distance. So the idea that just because we're in the neighborhood, that people in the neighborhood will come to the church, doesn't pan out too well. Now, Our Wednesday night gets some people from the neighborhood, but we
Okay.
don't ever see a lot of growth out of that.
Gotcha. Okay, so maybe just a little bit more during the middle of the week.
Right.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Okay. Well, since you've been around since 1825, I can only imagine there's probably some interesting historical aspects that have happened here at this congregation. Do you have anything interesting that's happened in the history of this church?
Yes, there's quite a few things, but I'll try to just limit it down to a few. When you looked into the sanctuary, you saw this silver-plated communionware that we still use, and actually we have a baptismal right there. Those are all donated by the Japanese jugglers, a group that came through. Yes, I don't.
The Japanese jugglers.
The Japanese jugglers.
Okay.
They
okay.
came through and they gifted those to the church, and that's pretty neat. I thought that was a kind of interesting little side note that this act came through.
Right.
Impressed by the church, make this gift.
Wow. That is pretty cool.
That we
actually.
still use to this day.
That's really
for
cool.
special service. I mean, we keep it up there all the time, and we have to polish it quite often. But
Right,
but
right.
but on special occasions, we still use the communionware. So
That is amazing.
it is amazing.
Wow. Okay.
A couple other interesting things is Hopkinsville hosted the Greenville Synod, and S.G. Burney preached there. Now, some of y'all might not know who he was. He was kind of a controversial figure, but I think he was a little, in my own opinion, he was controversial for the wrong thing. He was a modalist, but anyways, that's kind of not either here nor there, but he was a very prominent theologian. Joe Ben Irby writes about him. I've actually got his book on soteriology over there on my shelf, but Burney was a very important figure in our denomination. And he came and he preached when we had Synod here, so that's a pretty cool thing.
Okay.
And A.C. Biddle was a minister here.
Okay.
Now, A.C. Biddle was also a theologian. He's listed in this there, you believe, as well.
Ah, okay.
And I've ordered his book. I don't quite have it. They don't have that at the seminary, so it's one of those Biblio Life books, or one of those special
Gotcha.
order reproductions that you have to order. But I'm looking forward to reading it. But he was a real mover and shaker in the church, and he was a minister here from 1883 to 1895.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so he wrote a book called The Cumberland Presbyterians, and so I just think that's pretty amazing. So those are some pretty interesting things in our history. Well, one more thing. I don't know if you might want to cut this out. I don't know. Reverend Talley was actually featured in an NRA magazine thing.
Okay.
Reverend Talley was known for staying late hours in this office, this suite-like office. It's a beautiful office. But anyways, he was leaving one night, and a man accosted him and
Oh, gosh.
and held him at gunpoint and brought him to his office in here. Well, Reverend Talley said, well, my money's in the desk. Well, he also had something else in there. He had a gun on him, and he said, son, I don't think you want to do this. And he drew down on the man, and the man left. And
Wow. Wow.
So I don't know how that will fare in the Cumberland Presbyterian Church. I know some people are not very much gun friendly, but
Right.
this church has a history. He was a gunsmith. Actually, he did the woodworking. Actually, the altar that's in there and in the chapel, he did well, not in the chapel, I'm sorry, it's in the narthex now, right in front of that round stained glass. He did those. He did the woodworking for those.
Oh, wow.
I think he did the woodworking for these shelves as well.
Oh, my goodness.
So
very
he was very
talented. Very
Yeah.
talented man.
Yes.
That's
yes.
amazing.
And he, as far as I know, I don't know how many Cumberland Presbyterians wear a collar, but he was known for wearing a collar.
Okay.
They called him, people around town called him Father Talley.
Wow.
Yes. And he was also just kind of an interesting character. He would often go to the bar and witness to people there. If
Wow.
anybody called him, he would not refuse to go see them. It would be a very weird situation if somebody called and asked me to come pick them up from a bar. But Reverend Talley just had that kind of heart, and I just think that's
amazing.
It is.
I mean, that's truly a servant's heart.
Yeah.
To be able to go into those situations and and just care for people right where they're at.
Right. He was just quite a character. He left quite an impression on this church. So
That's awesome, and I'm sure an impression on this community as well.
yes, absolutely.
Sure, absolutely. So your sanctuary is beautiful,
Yes.
and I love, love, love your sanctuary. With your sanctuary, some people's sanctuary kind of lends itself to like a contemporary worship, and
Yes.
some more of a traditional worship. So with your sanctuary, how do you feel that it lends towards
Okay, well,
bringing you guys into worship?
right. It is very traditional, at least in the style of the wood. I mean, it looks like you're in a boat. I mean,
It really
it's
does.
huge.
Yeah.
And but the glass is kind of like this modern art
Yeah.
style. Johann Westenberg, our chapel, it amazed him so much. He's an artist in the area. He did an art show out of our chapel recently.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so we were very proud of that. We need to do some remodeling to that chapel. It's hard to maintain the carpets and things in those areas where
Right.
there's a wall of stained glass. But anyways,
Yes.
the stained glass is kind of not your traditional stained glass with beautiful biblical imagery. It's mostly just colors. And so
Right.
we have a cross at the front. We actually have 3 crosses at the front that are in red. But the way that it's made, it's kind of not overstated.
Right, right. It is really, when I walk into your sanctuary, it invites you into that quiet space of worship.
Yes.
You know, it's not, when I think about y'all's sanctuary, it's not one of those spaces where I want to jump up and down and scream and holler and, you know, praise God. Because there are spaces that you want to do that.
Right.
But your sanctuary really invites you into that quiet, kind of introspective, just spending that time that's just breathing, you know, and feeling
Yes.
God's presence. And it's, I personally think it's absolutely a beautiful, beautiful sanctuary.
Well, thank
and
you.
A great place to worship,
Thank
definitely.
you. I appreciate that.
Now, you guys are, Hopkinsville's how big?
We have 70, well, not Hopkinsville, but Christian County, we have 70,000 people.
Okay. So, and you're located right in the middle of a residential section. So
Yes.
how does that affect your ministry, being in this middle of the residential section?
Well, it's hard to kind of get the word out. I mean, we can't put up an electronic sign or anything because nobody's going to pass through here.
Right, that's true.
And
yeah.
so we have little signs on the end of the road, and we're looking at getting those replaced relatively soon. But they're doing pretty good for their age. But it's hard. You know, we put up things. We have to advertise on the radio. We just recently had a block party, and we had probably about 75 to 80 people, and you know, and that wasn't just church members. I mean, mostly, I'd say about we kind of had a low turnout from the church members. I'd say we probably had about 30 people from the church, and then about 75 people from the community.
Oh, wow. So you did have a really big community group that had come and
Yes, and the
spent
people
time
from
with
the
you.
area actually came this
Okay.
time, which was good. That's what we did it for. We wanted
Right.
it. You know, it is in the middle of the community. We want to do things for our community. It's
Sure.
just we don't have we just don't have the connections here in the community
Sure.
to do that. And
Okay.
in this residential area, and our residential area is very patchwork. Like there's
Yeah.
some of it that's like middle to middle income, and then there's lower income houses.
Okay.
And so we have a wide variety. And as I said, on Wednesday nights we get a lot of neighborhood kids.
Okay.
And if any of the kids we can get their parents to come, we usually have a pretty good retention rate.
Right.
But if we can't get the parents to come Sundays, you know, they go and do their own church, or they don't go to church.
Right, right. So that
So
that
it's
makes
a
it
mission
difficult.
field,
That
yeah.
makes it difficult. So with that, and knowing that you're in the middle of this residential section, what is kind of the main focus for your congregation right now? What are you guys looking at doing?
Well, I mean, we're trying to push forward a little bit. We're dragging ourselves, kicking and screaming, into the 21st century.
I think our viewers can probably sympathize with that, because I think most of our
Right.
churches are kind of kicking their and screaming on the way in. Yeah.
We had brought up screens and stuff years ago when I first got here, about 7 years ago, and they were open to the idea, but nobody was really excited about it.
Right.
So we just kind of pushed that on the back burner. But when COVID hit and everything else, you know, we put up screens and projectors, and they weren't cutting the mustard. The thing that I kind of, that kind of won the church over on those is that you can do it beautifully. You don't have
Sure.
to just use like a white background
Sure.
with black letters. But anyways, So they invested, they got all in. We started off with just a camcorder last year. Now we have like a $1,200 camera that's mounted that you can zoom in on people from back in the back with a computer.
Gotcha.
And we have a TV. And so a lot of our stuff we're focusing in on trying to reach people digitally, but we also want to reach people in our community. We're trying to do some contemporary things. There's a new show out as of this taping called The Chosen. It's only on season 2.
Right.
And we're doing a Bible study on season 1.
Wow.
And so we're trying to get our younger people plugged into a more contemporary view of things on that. You know, we are a very traditionalist Bible church, but we're trying to get the Bible to their level.
Right, absolutely.
And the younger people, you know, there's a lot of people who are unchurched.
Very much so.
And so,
you know, one of the conversations I've had recently with some of my congregants is years ago, you could make an off reference to like Noah or Moses or Job, and the majority of the people in your congregation would pick up on that reference just like that. But because our younger generation, the generation coming up behind you and I, didn't go to church, was not involved in church, and don't know those stories, when I'm preaching, I almost have to like give a short synopsis of this comment before I make the comment, because they don't catch the reference anymore.
Right.
Because they don't know who Moses or who Job or who Noah is. They just don't have any idea. So you almost have to re-explain everything, even just to make.
Well, and that's not, that's just basic things.
Yes,
but
yeah.
even people who are a little more seasoned, for example, in The Chosen, I thought they did a great job of this, is in the book of Numbers, where you have the Israelites being attacked by the serpents and poisoned. And, you know, Moses makes this standard, and how much of a shock that would have been to them, because it's an image.
Yes.
But anyways, Moses makes this image. Well, we don't understand the fullness of that image until we get to John chapter 3, and we all know John 3:16,
right,
but we don't ever think about the fact of this image or this standard of this serpent that's looked on and believed upon to receive healing. And so, I mean, even though you're right, we have a less biblically literate behind us, but you know, I would say that a lot of people don't even know those kind of things. So.
And that's true, and I agree with you. I think The Chosen, if our viewers haven't watched that, I highly encourage you to, because it has done a fantastic job so far. Every episode, just warning you, every episode's made me cry. So.
It is amazing. It goes into the realm of plausibility, because they're making a show. So, so we don't have Nicodemus's backstory. We don't have Mary's backstory. We know that she was possessed by 7 demons. You know, a lot of people attribute other things to her in tradition, but really all we know is that she was possessed by 7 demons. And so the backstories that they have on these are very plausible and more realistic than a lot of Christian movies out there.
Yes, I agree. So what are some projects that you guys are currently working on, or maybe are you partnering with different organizations? What kind of stuff are you guys working on right now?
Well, we work with the Salvation Army a lot in our community. We take up items for them. We take up items for the local school. We have a food pantry, but it's literally a pantry. I mean, we're not a huge, a lot of people that we help are the people who fall through the cracks, like the working poor. So we try to help people with bills, but a lot of times we can't pay the full bill. Because people get into really bad situations, and they wait till the last minute to call you, and we just don't have that kind of money to come up with. But we try to help people as best as we can in our community. We try, I think a lot of what our Wednesday nights, we have a snack every Wednesday night, like Little Debbie's and chips and things. And like lemonade and things like that. And then our first Wednesday of every month, we have a meal, and we get a huge turnout for those.
Nice.
But it is, you know, it's a ministry. And I think we're doing things okay. I mean, we like to do things for the Cumberland Church. You know, we really like the children's home. We support that. We've often, there'll be times when we take up the Fifth Sunday stuff. If we can designate it to somebody, sometimes we'll designate it to the children's home, but we always try to help with that. We participate in loaves and fishes and try to be active in that. And so We try to be active in our presbytery.
Sure, sure.
We're very active in camps. Our people, you know, we'd have adults from the church and kids who came, adults who volunteered and kids who came to camp. And so until COVID kind of hit that.
Right,
so,
right, absolutely. Yeah, COVID's unfortunately shut down a whole lot of our activities and projects that we would love to be working on, and we just can't right now.
I understand.
Which is unfortunate, which is very unfortunate. So Bobby, what are your hopes? What are your plans? What are your aspirations for this church here in Hopkinsville? What would you like to see in the future?
Well, the main thing I'm working on is discipleship. We can't be what we're not. Okay.
True.
We are a small church. What can we do? And what do we do really well? We love people. And I'm astounded by some of the love that we have here. We have a lot of mentally handicapped people who come to our church, and they're loved and accepted.
Right.
And I think that's a great thing.
Absolutely.
And one story I have to tell real quick, and I don't know if I may go over time. You can cut any of this that you need to out, but we had a homeless lady come, or not a homeless. I don't know if she's homeless, but she was not in good condition.
Okay.
And she came to the church on Sunday morning. She had pajamas. She kind of smelled of urine and things. She wanted help, and we were like, well, church. It was 5 minutes before church began. We're like, we can't help you right now, but you're welcome to stay for church. That's what the church members were like. Hey, you're welcome to stay for church.
Right.
There's a lot of times when I've seen that would not happen.
Right. Sure.
And she didn't end up staying, but you know, and there's numerous occasions like that. So we can major in our minors. What we can do best is love people.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times Cumberland's we get thrown in with other Presbyterians, and we're called the frozen chosen. But in all reality, we're the flawed thawed.
There we go, the flawed thawed. We're gonna make that saying go around. The flawed thawed. I like that. That's awesome.
And so, what I want to do here is reach out with the videos, and because sometimes with the video ministry, sometimes it's fruitless, and you get a lot of people who stay home instead of coming to church. Sure. But I want you to think about the fact of this. There are people who are watching videos that may not have gone and stepped into a church. And there's people who may watch a video and realize that the family environment and the love that you have is better than any kind of church that you could go to that might have a huge stage production and the beautiful light effects and all these things. You know, we can't do all that. We just don't have the budget for that. We don't have the facility for that. I mean, as you said, our facility is not made in that kind of way.
No.
And so we can just do what we do best, and that's love people and share the truth of the gospel. And
amen. And that's really what it's all about.
It is.
That is truly what it's all about. Just love people right where they are and share that beautiful message of Christ with them in any way that we possibly can.
Absolutely.
Well, Bobby, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate that. And our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. And catch us next time on Where in the CPC is Rev Z.